Okay, so first up, too large a board. So first up, for any answer writing thing, there are three important aspects that you need to cover. This answer writing or the GS paper is not about literature or language. It's all about how you can put in the facts. So the first thing would be, let's forget that. It's okay, I'll just dictate. So the first thing is having simple language. Okay. Please don't feel pressurized to, write complicated words. You don't have to be a Shashi Tharoor to express yourself. Not required at all, in fact, because the test is based on what? On the points, the answering the question. Second thing that you need to understand is the word limit. Okay. The word limit is for a reason, and it's mandatory to follow the word limit. Now, there's a small misconception. I'm sure you must have heard of this, that plus minus 5-10 words are okay. That is not okay, actually. Plus is not okay. You have to always write in under the word limit. Okay. And also, let's say it's a 150 word answer. Please always prefer writing in around 130, 135 words. There are two reasons for it. Number one is that the evaluator, see, for us, when we write the answer, it might be slightly challenging for us to, actually count the words or maybe make an estimation every time. But for those evaluators, they are very well placed. They have seen hundreds of questions. It's very easy for them to decide and determine whether something crosses 150 words or not. And secondly, the real challenge in your GS paper is writing all these 20 different topics. That means 4,000 words in under 180 minutes. 20 topics, all different. And you have to also write around 4,000 words. The real challenge is the time frame. Okay, so I'm not sure if you've ever taken any full-length mains paper. You will realize immediately that it is not possible to write all 20 answers in 3 hours. That's the biggest challenge. And a lot of aspirants do miss out on 1 or 2 questions despite knowing very well the answer. Okay, so what we do as a simple strategy is for every 150 word answer, try to write the answer in just 130, 135 words, saving 15 words in every such question. And for 250 word answer, around 220, 230 words. That's it. We save on and cut short on those 15, 20 words, which will help us eventually write the entire paper. So that's the second point, that respect the word limit, come what may. You have to frame your answer in less than those words. Okay. I don't know how this misconception came, but in my previous organization, we used to interact with a lot of these people who were also a part of UPSC's evaluation team at some point of time. And that was a general consensus, right? That they would prefer having answers in less than the word limit. So please avoid crossing the word limit. And third thing that we all need to understand, and I think a mistake that we all make, which comes from our college days, is writing what is asked. There's a question and you have to only write what is being asked, because we have this tendency that we read the question, we find some keyword that we know about, and we start vomiting on paper everything that we know about. So what we do is we write what we know, and then it's the duty of the evaluator to find out the answer from there. It's not our responsibility. That's not how things work. It is not their duty to find out the answer. So please don't write useless information to show off your knowledge. You have 20 questions to show off knowledge. Okay. So please write exactly what is being asked. To give you a simple question, if let's say there is a question, there's a very old question to remind you that the question talked about how president has been sitting on commutation petition. You know commutation, right? Commutation? No? Do you have any idea on clemency powers of Indian president? Clemency, mercy petition? Yes, no, something? Yes? What is commutation, if you can tell me? Very good. Commutation simply means you change the character or nature of punishment. So if let's say somebody has been awarded death sentence, so in our country we do award death sentence, also called capital punishment. You can appeal, you can request the president, and then your punishment can be modified to possibly a life imprisonment. That is called commutation. Anyway, that's not the point. The question was that, in our country, presidents sit on these commutation petitions for years and years. That causes delay in the delivery of justice. Now, this was a question. If an aspirant reads the question, he might be inclined to thinking that, oh, this question is about clemency. I will write the commutation, but let me firstly write what is clemency, types of clemency, pardon, remission, respite, reprieve, commutation, and then move on. That is the wrong approach. The question does not expect you to define in detail about various clemency powers. It only asks you one type of clemency, very specific, and you have to just write about that and your views on that. Because if you write anything which is not asked in the exam, two things happen. Number one, you don't get marks for that statement. All the lines you write, 0 marks for them. Number two, you have wasted words also, because you just have 130, 140 words to write. Okay, we are running short of words and also time. So we cannot spend that time in writing useless information, which is not required for the exam. Okay, so that's one, the third concern. So first thing is simple language. Second would be, of course, focusing on what? Word limit. And third is writing what is asked, not what you know. So these are three basic aspects. Now, beyond that, on certain other directives, I thought you would be writing what I said, but clearly we don't need to. Can we write these things? Will it be possible? Oh, then write, please. So maybe we can just write a small heading there. So just write like this: important, and number one, simple language. First thing. Simple language. Number two, word limit. And number three, write what is asked. Write what is asked. Okay, that's it. Now let's also understand some other aspects. So beyond this, the first question that would come in the mind of an aspirant is what to write, or rather in what structure to write. Should I write in paragraphs? Should I write in points? So normally for our optional paper, we prefer writing in paragraphs, okay, because we have a lot of space and time to write. For our essays, we have to write in paragraphs. We should never write in points, okay. But for our GS papers, the preference should be writing in points. So please don't write in paragraphs. Of course, we should have a mix and match. So if we have to write about the answer, 70% of our questions should be in, or answers should be in, the point format, and 30% can be in paragraph format. See, we write in paragraphs only when we do not know the points, right? Otherwise, we would always prefer writing in point format. The moment you write in paragraphs, the evaluator gets to understand that maybe this fellow is not really sure on the points, and that's why he or she has chosen to write in paragraphs. So we want to steer clear from this idea that we don't know the points. Mix and match is nice, but most of the answers should be in point format. But intro should not be in points, okay? Intro has to be in a small paragraph, and conclusion can be in points, but body in point format only. Second thing is also misconception that, we cannot criticize the government. It is not possible. You have to always write great things about the government. No, we can freely criticize policies and programs, just not naming the person. That's something we need to avoid. So don't name an individual, but if let's say you want to talk about, emergency 1975-77 period was a very draconian period in the country, I'll simply write the government in 1970s, the then incumbent government, not the Congress government, not the BJP, right? We'll tend to write the government. And that's how a criticism should be. Also, feel free to criticize the government policies because that's the whole idea. But any criticism should be fair, genuine. We don't have to be selected for the Hindu columnist, right? We have to be selected for a civil servant's post. This means eventually you have to also resolve the problems. So every issue or every criticism should be accompanied with some kind of solution. So when you write any kind of criticism of any government policy or program, you have to also offer solutions. Okay. And just to clarify, make sure that your solutions are viable in nature. Viable meaning practical in nature. For example, let's say your suggestion to eradicate poverty, it cannot be to kill all the poor people, right? That can't be a solution. Or your solution should also be practical in the sense that we cannot always expect the government to spend excess amounts of money. So normally some of the aspirants catch this line that enhance the budgetary allocation. That's a word that they use because that's what we teach them. That we have to increase budgetary allocation for schemes or programs, etc. That cannot work everywhere because the real challenge when you enter the government service is limited funds. So how can your suggestion always be increase the funds? The country has no money. So we cannot always fall back on this suggestion that increase the budgetary allocation. Okay, because we have limited funds and that is the expectation. Within the limited funds, you have to give a viable solution. So don't always fall back on this suggestion only that enhance the budgetary allocation. That might not always work. So this is called an unviable solution. That every solution has one statement, enhance the budgetary allocation. That can't be it. Also, let's say you're solving some answer on e-governance, for example. Now, we cannot rope in 100% ICT. ICT, you know what is ICT? What is ICT? Information and communication technology. Use of ICT in delivery of services. E-governance. Now, e-governance, of course, is great. It provides for transparency. It enhances the delivery of services, makes it quick, fast. All these great things are there. But India also suffers from two important problems. One is the digital divide. 75% of internet users live in urban areas. And number two is also the lack of facilities, infrastructure. So we cannot always have the suggestion also that, for example, complete online, complete ICT. That's called an example of an unviable suggestion. Some suggestions can be like this, but in every such answer, one suggestion is, having use of ICT, that's also unviable. Okay. So when I give suggestions, it should be practical, it should be implementable in large scale, considering and keeping in mind the country's challenges. So that's the second aspect of our basic structure. And now coming to the third aspect, which is very important. I think you must have heard of this, developing something called a 360-degree approach. Now, this is something that takes the most time to understand and develop. When you talk about 360-degree approach, I want to link my answer to as many answers as possible or as many dimensions as possible. So there could be a social dimension, there could be an economic dimension, there could be an ethical dimension. Now, this takes a lot of time because you can only have a 360-degree approach after you have read certain topics like, say, polity, economics, social justice, etc. Otherwise, you might not have the knowledge of those various dimensions, right? So your entire journey of answer writing is all about this. The more angles you can provide in your answer, the better your answer looks, the more complete your answer looks. Okay. And the best reflection of it is your essay paper. So maybe I'm not sure whether you have started practicing essays or not, but essay is a very good reflection of your GS preparation. Because when you write an essay, of course, it is nowadays essays are all about philosophical essays, etc. But they also reflect how good your GS preparation has been, especially the topics of, say, polity, like, say, DPSP, duties, topic of social issues from paper 1, Indian society, social justice of paper 2, Okay, the economics angle, ethics, how good your section A of ethics preparation has been. So it reflects in your essay paper. Same idea should be used in your GS papers also. Okay, interlinking topics, and this is what will take the most time. Your entire preparation period is all about interlinking topics. That's why I don't study things in isolation. We prefer not to, especially in today's day and age, and with the changing pattern of examination. You cannot simply study any topic in isolation because you have overlap. In the last so many years, in polity, for example, every year they have this one question which links polity to, say, a women's issues topic. For example, back in 2019, they asked a question in panchayats, right? And the question was that despite the reservation in panchayats, I hope you're aware of, we have a reservation in panchayats for women. Up to 1/3 seats are reserved for women. 21 states have made it 50% also. In your state also, half the seats are reserved for women. But despite this reservation, it has not changed the patriarchal setup of society. Okay, the patriarchal setup remains the same. Now, this is a question from women's perspective. Patriarchy. What is the meaning of patriarchy? Male dominated. Any society which is called male dominated is a patriarchal setup. Now, this is a paper one topic. Okay, social issues, Indian society and social issues. But what they've done is they have linked this topic to paper 2. A small idea there. So, of course, you'll write the points like, the typical points that you experience for any women's issue is like, first thing is security concerns for women. Second is things like dual responsibility. You know what is dual responsibility? For every woman who is working outside, they face a problem of dual responsibility. Women here, would you want to elaborate what is dual responsibility? Work-home balance, right? Whether you work outside or not, the dinner should be ready at 8 p.m. on the table. That's the expectation. That is called dual responsibility. Okay, and that's a patriarchal mindset. So just in your house, imagine the situation. Let's say if your mother goes out of the house for a few days, then the responsibility of managing the house falls on the girl child. Whether you have an elder brother or not does not matter. Bhaiya ka khayal rakhna. How can you take care of your brother who is older to you? But that's how the mindset is. Patriarchal mindset. Now, these are all issues that you cover in your social issues paper. But because you have been asked this question in GS paper 2, you also have to put in things like, so in panchayats, there's this problem called proxy candidate. Panchayat pati or sarpanch pati, depending on who the wife is. If she's a ward member, then you're called a panchayat pati. If your wife is a sarpanch, you're called a sarpanch pati, right? So this tag depends on your wife's performance. So what's this sarpanch pati? It simply means that your wife was an elected member, but she will not go and take part in the meetings, but her husband goes and sits in the meetings. Now, these are angles that you have to put in the answer for paper 2 and also incorporate some paper 1 knowledge. So overlap. This is what we expect, not we. UPSC expects you to incorporate. Clear? That is why I said 360-degree approach is extremely important in your answers. So when you study any topic, please make sure that you are studying it from a wholesome perspective, economic dimension, social dimension, ethical dimension, right? And the more linkage you can provide, the better your answer appears. Okay. But also, just to clarify, we need to be very careful with our suggestions. Our suggestions can never violate constitution at any cost. For example, you could have a question, though we've had a question like this in the past, comparison of India and USA and their political scheme. So India follows something called a parliamentary form of government. Yes. And USA follows what? Presidential form of government. So there was a basic comparison drawn. Now, you might have a belief that we should also have presidential form of government in India. That's your personal choice. This can't be a part of your solution or suggestion. Despite the great things that a presidential form offers, our final solution or suggestion has to be that what we have is perfect. Why? Because parliamentary form of government is a part of basic structure of our constitution. So when you give any suggestion, please make sure that you don't violate the constitutional values. Okay? Please have a look at your basic structure topic again, see all the elements and features so that you do not violate the basic structure in your suggestions. Any suggestion should not violate constitution. Okay? Because you have to ultimately work within the framework of this rule book. If you cannot respect the rule book right now, we don't expect you to respect it once you clear the exam. That's what reflects in your answer. Okay, so we normally use a phrase called aligning my values with the values of the constitution. Okay, in reality, whether you align or not, nobody cares. In your answers, it should appear that you have aligned your values to the constitutional values. Are you clear? So no suggestion which violates the constitution. And now comes an important part on your entire structure. So I'll just explain how this answer would look like. So I think it's a very typical way to write your answer. You have your 150 words, you have your two type of questions. I hope we are aware on these things. Two types of questions, 10 questions, 150 words, 10 questions, 250 words, right? So every question has an introduction, has a body and has a conclusion. Okay. For a 150 word answer, introduction cannot exceed 20 words. Please write a small intro. So I am writing 20 words here. That is the upper limit. It should be less than 20 words. The introduction is just about explaining what is about to come. Okay. So please don't write a large introduction. It wastes words. Clear? It shows the very poor structure of the answer. Same goes for 250 words. We can extend it to 30 words if you want. And trust me, 30 words are sufficient to express your point of view. So please don't cross that. Now comes a different challenge of conclusion. So normally the best conclusion, the safest conclusion is to always write suggestions. Make suggestions a part of your concluding paragraph. If it is asked, elaborate. If not asked, in 15-20 words. So because your conclusion will incorporate suggestions, it can reach 30 words also, and here it can reach 45 words also. But this will only be reached if you are writing suggestions in your conclusion. Okay, so the best thing would be to write suggestions as conclusion. It also takes the pressure away from thinking about something very creative. We cannot always be very creative. For essays, it's quite easy because you have limited kind of essays. That typical essays on democracy and happiness and peace of mind, all that nonsense being asked. You can prepare some quotes on that, right? And your essay conclusion also depends on your introduction, which can be a story also. So here there's a challenge. You have 20 different questions. You cannot always prepare for those kind of questions. I'll tell you which topics that you must prepare for, but otherwise difficult. So the best conclusion is suggestion. We feel free and we also take the burden off our shoulders on being very creative. Rest of the words belong to the body. Body can be in multiple paragraphs. So all the remaining words, around 80-90 words here, because we will not touch 150. 90% is your aim, 135, and here also around 230 words is what you should aim for, 90-95%. Okay. So rest of the words belong to the body. That is your structure. Are you clear? Simple and easy to follow. Now, before I explain on certain topics that need to be focused on, one more thing that you need to understand is this, that when we talk about how do I begin my practice of this answer writing. So now I'll give you a hierarchy of what need to follow. The first and foremost thing that you need to focus on is your content. Content comes from knowledge. Your entire preparation is all about improving content, studying more. So that's number one for every aspirant. You have to focus on content, okay, because content is the king. If you do not have the content, however good your language is, the structure is, it does not really matter. Content means all the points, dimensions being covered. Along with content, right from day one, the very first answer you write, you have to focus on word limit. Both these have to go together. So initially when we start writing answers, we give ourselves this liberty that I can exceed the word limit, because right now I'm just practicing. No, that's not correct. Right from your first answer, you have to make sure that you write your answer in under 150 or 250 words. These two are being improved from day one. Once we slowly get a command of this, then we move on to focusing on the third aspect, which is the structure. When I say structure, I'm talking about, the intro, body, conclusion, having a small introduction, a medium-sized conclusion, writing answers in point format. That's what structure is all about. So once I have my content in place, my next target is to focus on minimizing intro, keeping the conclusion in a certain confined word format, point format, all these things. That is what is structure. Okay. Once we are following this, then comes number 4, the language. Now, language has 3 elements to it. The very first element of language is choice of words. Choice of words. A lot can be revealed about you through the words you choose to speak. Okay, I think this is standard in ethics as well. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's say you come to the examination hall on that day, and that very morning you were stopped by a police constable and who asked you for a bribe. Okay, and we all know that police is largely corrupt, but we can't write this statement in our answer. Okay, we can't give blanket criticism. We have to use our words carefully. Don't make allegations without supporting argument of facts. So if I have to write that police is corrupt, my words have to reflect like this. For example, it is believed that police is corrupt. In popular public perception, police is seen as corrupt. I'll use these words. I don't believe police is corrupt. I'm a nice fellow. Others say all these things. That's your idea. So you exhibit a positive frame of mind. You don't start criticizing every organization. And if you criticize, you use these kind of words. You have to slowly build this habit of remaining neutral and aloof, away from the answer. Don't get emotionally involved in the answer. That will reflect in your choice of words. Second thing is, of course, spellings. And not general spellings, but especially the spellings of your technical terms. For example, if you're writing a polity answer and you write a spelling of sovereignty wrong, that is actually a criminal offense. You should be jailed for that. 7 days of jail minimum, right? Because we cannot really have technical term spelling mistakes in our answers. So please do not use words, the meaning of which you are not sure of, the spelling you are not sure of, and for every subject, be very sure of the spelling of those technical words. Okay, that is not seen in right light. Third is, of course, grammar. Though we have seen that UPSC does avoid or ignore minor grammar mistakes. Okay, but still we have to avoid grammatical errors. A very simple way to avoid grammatical error is to write short sentences. If you write a long sentence, you start in the past tense, end up in the future tense. We avoid that. We write short sentences. We write in points. But yes, don't worry too much about grammar, because we have seen a lot of these topper copies. You'll just go through the answers. You'll find they are full of grammatical mistakes. And still those people get good marks, because the idea is content. So this can be hidden through flowcharts and diagrams, etc. Okay. Of course, I mean, only within reasonable limit. All are come, you are go. If you write like this, then they might not be able to ignore it. Within reasonable limits, they can ignore grammatical errors. So don't worry too much about grammar if you can frame sentences properly. Okay. Once these things are in place, then see, one more thing that aspirants do worry about is handwriting. So, I mean, how do I respond to it? See, think of it like this. Somebody who is more presentable, you tend to forgive their small mistakes, right? That's the idea. Human beings love beauty in every form, including the answer. But sadly, so of course, if your handwriting is nice, your some minor mistakes can be forgiven. If your handwriting is very bad and the evaluator is finding it difficult to read, he is already very angry. So he will not ignore mistakes. But the point is, it's too late to change our handwriting. Please blame your parents for it. You can do nothing now. Maybe you can improve your kids' handwriting in future, right? But that's for future. What we can incorporate is neatness in our paper. That's why I will not write handwriting as the fifth point, but neatness. To help you understand this, what would neatness look like? So let's say this is your A4 sheet. You have the margin on both the sides. So we should write with proper spacing between sentences, proper change of paragraph, etc. Okay. Write in slightly bigger font size. Keep gap between two lines. Neatness. This, if done, is more than enough. You don't have to worry too much about it because these are things beyond our control. So neatness is what we incorporate. This is your decreasing order of importance. First this, and then we slowly, with passage of time, improve this. And the last thing that you should be worried about, which is the first thing that students worry about, is time. Right now, you are in the practice phase. Please don't worry about time. It is of no concern to you right now. You take a question, maybe you took around 40 minutes to write the answer, no problem. Okay. But yes, keep a track of your time. Over the course, when you practice and improve on all these parameters, you will experience that you have started reducing your time. If that happens, that's great. Of course, ultimately, every 150 word answer has to be covered in 7 minutes. And this would require maybe around 11 minutes. That's there. I fully agree on that. But also be reasonable, right? Initially, you just don't have the skill, including knowledge, including the understanding to target this time frame. Okay. So if I start by this point, by challenging myself into writing in 7 minutes, I'll compromise on content. I'll compromise on structure. And that's the worst way to start. So initially, I will not worry about time. That will fall into place automatically. Clear? So this is a decreasing order of our hierarchy. Are we clear? That's what we need to follow. Now, beyond that, other issues or things like what kind of pen to use and color pen. We know very well black and blue are the only standard things. Don't use red. Of course, it's not allowed. And also don't use green. Green, you'll get to use green if you become a gazetted officer once you clear the exam. Right now, don't use green. So all those designs and various things that you write in your notes, they might not be required in the answer. And also underlining keywords, use the same pen to underline the keyword. Changing of pen wastes time. Again, these things might sound that no, I have, maybe for somebody here, they could have great writing speed. But for most people, finishing the paper will be a challenge. And you will experience this only when you write a full length mock paper. That's when you realize that writing 20 questions is a challenge. Maybe especially for paper 2, it's slightly easier because paper 2 has a lot of similar kind of topics, right? It's polity and governance and extension in social justice, somewhat closes IR. But look at paper 3, for example. It has diverse topics. So thinking of on those topics, coming up with ideas, writing those points, 20 different topics, you have no time to think, no time to plan your answer. So yes, it will be a challenge. So use the same kind of pen. Don't draw too many flowery designs on the paper, not required. You are impressing no one with that. Okay, you won't get extra 2 bonus marks for underlining in some kind of design format, not required. Okay. Also prefer writing with a ballpoint pen, not an ink pen or a fountain pen, because fountain pen does improve your handwriting because it has increased friction. It comes at the cost of speed. If your writing speed is already average or slow, then avoid the fountain pen. Though the paper is of very good quality, you don't have to worry about all these things that what kind of pen to use, V5, V7, it won't blot and all, you can use anything, but don't complicate life, okay, uselessly. Have a standard pen to write and always practice your answers in that blank A4 UPSC answer practice copy only. You'll get those in the market, UPSC answer copy, which has margin on both the sides, okay. Why I say this is because, a lot of people do have this problem. This is a blank sheet. Some of you might have, you start writing from here, you end up writing like this in the entire paper. Answer is in 30-degree format. This should not be the case. That will require some practice. So I'm sure you all have your LIC and SBI diary in the house, which you want to, use not for answer writing. Answer writing in A4 sheet only write from day one in this kind of format. That also helps you understand where your 150 words come, etc. because you cannot count the words. One more thing that people always are confused is, how do I know 150 words? It is very subjective. How many pages is subjective. Depends on your font size. So when you start practicing answers, the first 10-15 answers that you write, you have to count the words. Literally, count it. If you have some younger sibling in the house, ask them to count it. That's their task. Younger sibling have to be forced into doing all these things. If you are the younger sibling, then what can we do? Nothing. You only have to count. Now, once you have counted, then you will realize that based on your words and your font size, let's say, you write, there was one more page here, you wrote the entire page, and in this page, once I write because of my font size, my 150 words end up somewhat there. This is my mental marker now. That once I reach here, I know I only have 3-4 lines to write, and that will finish my 150 words. So for every individual, this place where you end 150 words is completely personal. That is something you get to know by practicing more answers. And ultimately, for all these things, what is required is, to write answers, practice. So a lot of people have this belief that, I'll firstly collect all the GS-based information. I'll collect all possible information about every subject, and then I'll start my answer writing. And when I write my first answer, it will boom basil the entire planet that who is this fellow? What an amazing answer he wrote as the first one. That won't happen. Trust me. Your first answer will be a pathetic answer. That's okay. That's the part of your progress. The more you delay this process, the more you are delaying your selection. Because this exam is based on just one thing. Not the knowledge you have, but what you can reproduce on paper. That's it. Right? So when you go to a gym, for example, to build your body, lose your weight, whatever, you don't say, where is the 50 kg dumbbell? Come on, show me. No, you start with those pink small dumbbells only. You are embarrassed. But still, that's the journey. That's your personal journey. You have to start writing answers. One answer per day, one essay per week. These are standard things which are being done by every aspirant. I mean, every aspirant who is about to clear the exam. Not every aspirant, because the country's national pastime is also preparing for UPSC, right? Somebody yesterday, some police constable stopped you, disturbed you, harassed you, you are angry now. You go home, I have to prepare for UPSC. I'll clear the exam, become SP and harass him now. And then you go back home and then you open the syllabus and you say, oh, sorry, by mistake. right? So this is country's pastime, but sincere aspirants do practice answer writing daily. Okay. So this is just some brief on how do we write answers, but ultimately it all boils down to understanding there are certain topics that you need to prepare for, because UPSC will ask questions on those topics anyway. But before I mention those topics, do you have any doubts, issues, concerns so far? Please feel free to ask me now. Haji, any doubt? No doubt. Any question, issue, clarification? No? Okay. Have we covered polity governance? Because, I mean, I asked a very basic passing reference question on clemency and I got a very good response. So I'm not sure. Have you guys covered polity governance? Yes, no, don't know. So polity is that topic, you know, which deals with Indian government, etc. There's a book called Lakshmikant. Exactly. So have you covered that topic? No? Oh, you have not covered that topic. Nevertheless, I'll just give you some important aspects on what to expect from polity governance. See, our only way to understand what is important is the PYQs. The first target of every aspirant should be two things. Number one, the syllabus. Number two, the PYQs. Every faculty says the same thing. I cannot say anything different, sadly, because that's the whole funda. Solving PYQs. Okay. Now, for the main examination, please trace back from 2013 onwards, because 2013 was a time when the syllabus was changed and modified. But also understand that when you go to 2013, 2014, 2015 and 2016, you might have a slight difference. Did it work? Oh, it works, right? Just work. What is the concern? Oh, writing does not work. Writing does not work. Oh, okay. Unique problems. Anyway. Post the pandemic and all, every place shifted to online. So now this becomes weird. Initially, when I started teaching online was weird because we had to shift from this board to that board. Now this board has become weird. Okay, so as I was saying, when it comes to your two important aspects of syllabus and PYQs. So 2013, 14, 15, 16, you have questions where answers were to be written in 200 words. Okay, so we won't follow that. So if you are practicing questions from 2013 to 2016, the questions are of great quality. You can practice freely, but pick and choose to practice in either 150 words or 250 words. So officially you will find that those questions were expected to be answered in 200 words, but we need to follow it in 150 to 250 words. Okay, that's one thing. Second is, if we go back and analyze what are those areas from where UPSC does ask questions every year, I think 3 areas stand out very clearly. Okay, for polity, the first area is judiciary, and under judiciary also there is a specific area that deals with issues like activism. Okay, this is one area from where UPSC will ask a question, whether it is something called PIL, public interest litigation, or judicial independence, or activism or overreach. They do ask a question. Okay. Second area from where UPSC is going to ask a question is local self-governance. Though interestingly, in 2025, for the first time in the last 10 years, 10 years, they did not ask a question on local self-governance. That was the first time. Otherwise, every year you will have one question on local self-governance. Same kind of question about issues and concerns and some suggestions. So when you study local self-governance, you have to also see what kind of questions are being asked. Okay, I'll give you a simple example of where we go wrong. So let's say you are studying local self-governance, panchayats for example. Refer to any book, say Lakshmikant, the most popular book for polity. Half the chapter, I think chapter 39 is on local self-governance, the new edition. Half the chapter is all about committees. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, Ashok Mehta Committee, L.M. Singhvi Committee, all that nonsense. In the last 30 years, not a single question has ever been asked in the prelims or mains from committees. But every aspirant, if they make their notes, committees. But we don't have to study Lakshmikant. We have to study for UPSC. So I need to see the previous year questions. The questions are focusing on issues and concerns of panchayats, merger of local bodies, rural and urban bodies. Why are the funds and functions not being given? Those are topics we have to consider. So that is why PYQs are important. What do I need to study can only be seen through PYQs. See, that is why for your main exam, there is no standard book for polity. The class notes of faculty are going to be the only source of help for you, because Lakshmikant fares very poorly for the main exam. It is a great book for prelims, and also for prelims it's too much of a book, not required. It has got too much of information which is not required for the exam, plus it still misses out on so many important aspects. They keep on adding chapters every time, but they still don't cover the most basic topics from where questions are being asked. I'll give you a simple example. Contempt of court. Look at the entire fundamental rights chapter if you've ever gone through it. They don't cover all these things. UPSC has asked questions on these things. That's a point. That's a problem. But yes, the book is great for anybody who's preparing on their own with no source, no help. That's a great book. But beyond that, that's not our target. Our target is the exam. So I have to also look into the PYQs. Local self-governance is a topic from where questions are going to come every year. And the third one is center-state relations. Firstly, these three. Every year, one question on center-state relations. Central issues, state issues, whatever is the concern, etc. You will have a question on these topics. Then beyond that, we can focus on other aspects. For example, under elections, there is a topic called, a law called RPA, Representation of People's Act. Okay. So there is an RPA of 1951. Of course, this RPA has multiple sections, over 150 sections, but there is a chapter 3 which has very few sections, 8, 8A, 9, 9A, 10, 10A and 11. That's it. In the last 7 years, 5 years, questions were asked from just that particular topic. And yet, a lot of aspirants don't mug up those sections. So, RPA from section 8 to section 11, that's it. But still, if you ask an aspirant, a senior aspirant also, on what is section 8, 1, 2 and 3, they might not recollect. I mean, you know very well that UPSC is crazy for this topic. This topic deals with primarily disqualification of our members. Okay. So, UPSC has been asking questions over and over again. And of course, if anything else, then electoral reforms. So, those are things that again are standard. And that can again be incorporated with some current affairs. Like say, recently they asked a question on simultaneous elections because that topic was being discussed a lot in news under the one nation, one election concept. Apart from this, one more topic that UPSC loves to ask is the chapter Parliament in general. Okay, so the functioning of Parliament, not those factual things, but the overall functioning of Parliament, the effectiveness of Parliament, the importance of Parliament. Parliament is a tool being used to hold government accountable. Okay, importance of Parliament. That's one topic that you can prepare selectively if you want to, or rather focus on preparing for that topic. Now, apart from this, you will, of course, have questions from other areas as well, but it is largely subjective depending on, what has been happening recently, and on and off they might ask you a question from various diverse topics. But there are a lot of topics from where UPSC refrains from asking questions. Every polity class normally starts with explaining the preamble and then moving on to part 1, part 2, citizenship and all that. In the last, since 2013, I would say, one question preamble was asked. One question was asked on part 1 that also is not covered by most places. That is, part 1 of our constitution is called Union and Territories. One question. And 2014. Zero question asked on citizenship. Okay. So again, we have to understand what is important and what is not. And that is why download all the PYQs. Please make a note of all the PYQs. Cross-reference it every time. And if your notes that you prepare and study in future, whatever, do not cover that, cover those topics first. Those are more important. So we sometimes feel the easy way out is pick up a book and follow from page 1. That's not the correct way. Okay. Now this is for polity. For governance, there are 2 topics that UPSC loves. One is e-governance. One question on e-governance. Always. Easy question. Issues, concerns, challenges, etc. There you have to also update yourself with examples. Latest e-governance schemes. Okay. So one topic is e-governance, from where you'll have a question. Second topic is something that would interest you also, called reform in civil services. What kind of reforms do we want in civil services? So for governance, it is e-governance and reforms. There is a topic in your syllabus called role of civil services in a democracy. This time, by mistake, UPSC asked a question from reforms in civil service in paper 1. We don't know whether it was a factual error or some kind of omission, but the question was asked in paper 1, which had got nothing to do with paper 1, but paper 2, but it was asked by mistake in paper 1. So these are favorite topics of UPSC. What kind of reforms are required in civil services? Focus on that aspect. Okay. Rather than mugging up random bodies, this is what is more important. And that is why, once you go through these are all contemporary questions, not current events. So this also brings to us, the misconception that we have. The misconception that we have that we have to be crazy obsessed with current affairs. I'll tell you why this misconception happens. This is just a selling strategy, sadly, as a part of market. See, if there is some static portion, right, history, geography, polity, whatever, economics, and somebody teaches you that, the task is done, right? You have been explained that and you are done. But if I can make you realize that current affairs is very important, more important than it is, you always will have to depend on me for that information. So I keep you hooked always, that if you don't pay for it or you don't come to me for it, you will not succeed in the exam. Please have a look at the entire UPSC paper also. Paper 1 has gotten nothing to do with current affairs. Paper 4, no current affairs. Your essay paper, no current affairs. For most cases, your optionals do not require current affairs. Paper 2 and 3 are the only papers that might need current affairs. And even there, for paper 2 especially, 60-70% questions don't need current affairs, and the remaining also only need current affairs as contemporary events. In the last 2-3 years, what has been happening, that is the bare expectation of every aspirant, that you should know what is happening in the country, right? But still, of 8 hours of my timetable every day, if I devote 3-4 hours to current affairs, that is disproportionate. Rather, focus on static portion. Current affairs, 1 hour on a daily basis is sufficient just to bridge the gap. Keep all the examples. Current affairs will only give you examples for your answer or context for the answer. In the intro, we normally add the context, and that can be given through current affairs. Nothing beyond that. So don't go too crazy also for current affairs. See the paper, see the syllabus, see what questions are being asked, and then prepare. I had some questions. Let's see if this, at least we can see the questions. So this is a question asked this year, a couple of years back. Explain the reasons for the growth of public interest litigation in India, PILs. As a result of it, has the Indian Supreme Court emerged as the world's most powerful judiciary? Now tell me, there is no current affairs here, since I was discussing current affairs. It's a general question on the reasons for growth of public interest litigation in India. Why have we seen the rise of PILs? That's it. Okay. So 2 parts. Again, since you have not covered polity, I'm not sure to what extent can you answer this question, but it's a very easy question because you have to cover what is PIL, what is the reason for the rise of PILs, and then your opinion. As a result of it, has the Indian Supreme Court emerged as the world's most powerful judiciary? So give us some information and give your opinion. That's it. No need to put in some kind of latest current event, but rather knowing about contemporary things. All your examples should be something that are relevant in the past 3-4 years. That's it. Or see one question like this. This is a typical panchayat question, panchayat or municipalities question. The states in India seem reluctant to empower urban bodies both functionally as well as financially. Comment. So local bodies, panchayats, municipalities. This 10 is a 10 marker. So it's a 10 marker. That was, I think, a 15 marker or 15 marker. So typical one question thrown in every year from panchayats, municipalities. All simple, straightforward, that you need to cover issues and concerns of panchayats and municipalities. And then suggestions on panchayats and municipalities. What steps have been taken so far? So when I study local self-governance, I'll study 4 aspects. Number 1, the constitutional provisions. Okay. Number 2, issues. Number 3, steps taken so far by government in terms of training program, etc. And number 4, suggestions. Okay. These are 4 things that I cover under panchayats. Once I cover this, I can answer almost every question that has been asked in the previous 10 years. That's the idea. Okay. Then, so something like this, a question on, fundamental rights, just to show you. So this is one fundamental right that is available to us. So why is reading the bare acts? You know what is bare act? The Indian Constitution is called the bare act. So the Indian Constitution, as in the bare act, means all the articles mentioned there. This fellow, the most eligible bachelor of our country, Rahul Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, highly intellectual. He always carries a copy of the Constitution. I'm not sure whether he has read it or not personally, but he carries a copy of it. So that's one publication, but the copy remains the same, the content remains the same. Every aspirant should have a copy of the Constitution. It's mandatory. Reading the articles on your own. If not anything, it will look nice in your bookshelf. You can take a selfie and act as a sincere aspirant, right? That can be one way. But reading the article is important on your own. Reading the articles are important. Why? Because look at this question. This question is nothing but meant for those who have read the articles on their own. Simple, straightforward. This question says that right of movement in our country and right of residence throughout the territory of India are freely available to Indian citizens. But these rights are not absolute. Comment. Factual question requires facts plus some opinion. Facts on the bare acts, that what are the restrictions, the limitations being placed on fundamental rights. Okay, so I read the rights, I read the limitations placed on these rights and any issue or concern accordingly. So you can see my point to again, as you guys have not covered it, this is all, alien language to you, Greek and Latin, because what is all this? What is residence and movement? But are you aware of the 6 types of fundamental rights? NCERT, class 9, 10th, right? 6 types of rights. So one such right is right to equality, and then the next is right to freedom. Remember, under right to freedom, there are certain categories of rights, one of which is the freedom of speech, expression, etc. In that, there is one subsection which is right of movement and right of residence anywhere in the country. So again, straightforward, typical question. Nothing much to discuss here. These are questions that sometimes, okay, so just to show you how, mistakes get made in our preparation. Again, this question is about a topic called ordinance. Are you aware of ordinance? What is ordinance? Any idea? Anybody? No. Oh, some of you are aware. Temporary legislative power. Look at this question. The first part reads, discuss the essential conditions for exercise of the legislative powers by governor. Okay. Discuss the conditions of the exercise of legislative power by governor. When you read your standard books and all, they will talk about powers and functions of president, powers and functions of governor, and they'll mention legislative power, executive power, military power, financial power, right? And that's the big mistake. Because in our constitution, there is no categorization of those types of powers. There is only one legislative power of governor, and that is ordinance. It is mentioned in the constitution as a heading in the constitution. So any person who has not read the bare acts will experience this problem. They might see that, okay, let me write all the types of legislative powers I read in the book. But this question is only about ordinance, nothing beyond that. And I'll tell you, this question was asked in 2023 or 23 or 21, I'm not sure. No, 21, I think. 21 or 22, because 21 was a question on council. This question is based on a Supreme Court judgment which came in 2017, asked after 5 years. Not on some current event, 5 years later. Okay. Again, to stress on this point that focus on static portion. Don't go crazy for current affairs. And this question is completely based on that idea of a very popular Krishna Kumar Singh judgment of 2017. So the learning should be, I'm not saying don't study current affairs. I have nothing against current affairs. Okay, I mean, it is important. But don't give it undue importance, is my point. More than required. 5 hours every day into newspaper, then collecting more notes, watching all the possible shots, everything. Pick up any monthly magazine of any organization. They all have the same content. The color design might be different. Content remains the same. And just 1 hour of it is perfect. Rather, if you want to study something, please study the magazines Yojana and Kurukshetra. They will do you more help than some magazine. Not the magazine on its own. Go online, just search for gist of Yojana and Kurukshetra. Summary. A lot of these coaching institutes give you a summary. Take a printout of that summary every month and mug up that summary. So those magazines are on topics like tribal issues, science and technology, agriculture, etc. They will be of immense help in the entire paper. Very few aspirants are following it. But those who are getting great marks, because those will give you genuine points, correct examples. Way more beneficial than, random current affairs that you find. And then you go on Telegram and solve 5 MCQs on random current affairs daily. They have no chance of being asked also in the exam. but it satisfies me that I have solved something. That's it. So that's there. Or one very interesting topic you can also add in this list, parliamentary committees. Recently, not that frequently, but UPSC has also been incorporating a lot of questions on parliamentary committees. Lot of these questions on parliamentary committees are being incorporated, and quite interesting. This question also, all standard, straightforward issues, concerns, contribution. You study a committee, about its structure, what has its contribution been, what are the functions, and what are challenges and suggestions. That's it. The structure of the question remains the same. Look at this question also. Do DRSC, so this committee is called DRSC, Department Related Parliamentary Standing Committees, keep the administration on its toes and inspire reverence? Reverence means respect for parliamentary control. Evaluate the working of such committees. So do these committees inspire respect for parliamentary control? This means you have to talk about the importance of committees. Okay. And then writing about the functioning, meaning the suggestion, issues, benefits, suggestions. The questions remain in that same broad category with certain twists. But again, for all that, we have to cover the topics first and then practicing. Okay, so these are some of the topics that you need to have a very strong command over. So rather than mugging up random topics, I would focus on mugging up these topics first. Of course, and also trying to cover to improve my answers, Yojana and Kurukshetra. Those two, they are not being released by me. Government releases it. Okay, so publication division is the one which prints it. They don't. I'm not their marketing agent. If you are in case feeling that, why is this fellow saying so much on Yojana Kurukshetra? Government magazine. Any coaching gist, summary of Yojana Kurukshetra, if you can incorporate this Yojana and Kurukshetra gist, it will be of great help. Paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, ethics paper, possibly you can also put in some pointers in your case studies. Okay. And yes, of course, essay, because ultimately, as I said, essay is also a very good reflection of how well your GS preparation is. So it will reflect there. And these are papers that decide your marks. See, GS papers don't decide your ranks, because for, let's say, the good aspirants, the ones who are going to clear the exam, they get almost similar marks in GS papers. Depending on, let's say some person has PSIR or some kind of optional paper, then they might have a better score in paper 2, etc. Somebody with, let's say, economics or history, geography could get a better score in paper 1, partially. But overall, the GS scores largely remain the same. It's the essay paper, the ethics paper, your optional papers. These are papers that create a difference in marks. Essay scores can range from 120 to 150. That's 30 marks difference, which might not be the case for your GS paper. In a GS paper, 2 toppers will not have a 30 marks difference. Okay. And in most cases, toppers do score heavily in an essay paper. Though I also know 2 years back, there was a topper, rank 1, who scored 119 marks in essay paper, which was a very low marking structure for a topper. But those are rare events. So when we prepare for all this, ultimately, we have to practice, build our knowledge through various means possible. So I don't know how helpful this session would be for you, but you can use these pointers for any GS answer, not just for polity. So if you have, let's say, covered some other subjects like geography, history, economics, etc., incorporate what the faculty has told you in terms of knowledge, use this basic structure, and try to practice answer writing. 1 answer per day. That's something you can do on a daily basis. And also, let's not forget, 1 essay per week. These 2 tasks, if done at the right time, will yield great result. Okay. So any queries, concerns that you might have, let me know. Doubts, issues. Any doubt is welcome. No doubt is silly, so don't worry.
Sir, sources to cover governance and social justice.
Social justice. See, there is no book for both social justice and governance, firstly. There are books, of course. Governance does have books. Lakshmikant's book on governance, which is completely useless. If you have purchased those books, please sell them to someone immediately. At least make some money out of it. But otherwise, see, the only source for governance is your faculty's class notes. Right now, there is no other source. So anyone who teaches you governance, they'll be covering certain topics. For example, things like accountability, RTI, Citizens Charter, CAG, transparency. Then you have your corruption studies, like all these bodies, CBI, CVC, Lokpal, ED, etc. And then you have topics like governance, which is just basically what is governance. We know the definition of governance. We cover what is good governance. Again, good governance has 8 features listed internationally. Then in our country, you find a slogan called minimum government, maximum governance. Know what this slogan is all about. So this topic, if you want to study on your own, you'll have to do a lot of research on it. So a better thing would be to sit in a governance class and get the notes. There is no standard book for this. In fact, what can help you would be studying Yojana Kurukshetra magazines. They might give you pointers. I think last year there was a beautiful monthly Kurukshetra magazine which was on e-governance. That entire magazine was e-governance. 5-6 interesting articles on e-governance. Lot of help can be taken from those articles in improving your answers. So no clear-cut source for both. They need a lot of self-preparation. Because, let's say a book on governance, they will cover so many silly things. For example, reform in civil services. So there is no such topic in your syllabus. The topic is role of civil services in a democracy. Okay. Now, these books don't cover that. They'll give you a structure of how the ministries are framed. Why? Because giving a structure is easy. It's covered in your public administration syllabus. So you can simply copy the data from there and give it to you to mug up uselessly. Not a single question on the structure, etc. is asked in the exam. The exam is asking you on important things like, issues of neutrality, issues of anonymity, etc. This would require a lot of effort. Though not to worry much, because governance does have lesser questions compared to polity. Again, it depends on what you call governance. Sometimes some people rightfully call CBI as part of governance, not polity. Or CAG as part of governance, because CAG is a body, CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General, is a body called CAG. So CAG is a body which ensures accountability. So I know CAG is in the constitution, but it's also a part of a governance structure. Say UPSC, SPSC, your favorite body UPSC. You might view it as a part of polity, but it's also covered under governance because role of civil services. Okay, so that overlap is there, but no source for that clearly. Anything else that you need clarification on? What all things have you guys covered so far in your GS paper? History is done. All 6, I mean. Which ones are left?
Post history, world history.
Post and world are left. So art and culture done, ancient done, medieval done, modern done. Okay. So 4 parts are done. I think post again selective, but world history is not covered. Okay. Then what else is covered? Economics is done. It's going on. Okay. And what else then? Sorry? Science and tech is done. It's going on. And what else is going on? Geography is done. Not yet started. Polity is done. Not yet started. Then, so the big 4 are yet to be done. So you've just recently, I did come for a class, I think a few months back, some kind of, orientation class on polity. I don't remember faces that well, but I did come to this place. That's what I remember. So did you guys by any chance attend that class? Oh, so you've been there in the institute for the past 3-4 months now. Okay, so we have covered history first and then economics is going on, science and tech is going on. Okay, great. Anything else that has been covered? No, the big 4 itself are left, so how would we cover smaller things? So what is your aim? Next, of course, not next year. That's not possible. 27. Anybody for next year? Hopes and dreams for next year? Next year. Oh. 28. No, 27. All of you are targeting 27. Okay. Should I say 27 and onwards? Because if we keep 1 year that this is my only attempt I'll ever take and will not sit again, not because you can't do it. People do it in the first attempt also. Hundreds of things go wrong, right? We can't put in all the eggs in one basket, but let's hope that you clear in the first attempt only. Okay, so no doubts, issues, concerns? No? Okay. Then let's end our session here today. We'll meet at some point of time, if possible, in future for some other session. When you are way more, slightly more informed on polity, we can have a better discussion on that as well. Okay. So that's all for me. Let's meet again. Jai Hind.